Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. We are here just for you. So we just like to put in a request that you like us, subscribe, maybe even support us on Patreon. But let us feel your love, please. Today's guest is Debbie Holden, and she's coming to us from London, England. Debbie is the proud mother of 2 children in their mid-20s, happily married to a wonderful man who paid her to have me say this, for 30 years now. And she's been a teacher of the deaf for over 31 years, teaching in 2 countries and 2 different states. She's a Reiki Master, a life coach, an Arbonne consultant, as well as a Reverend with the Alliance of Divine Love. She retired from her career 4 years ago and spends her days doing whatever the heck she wants to do. So she takes classes, she works out, and she blesses people, making the world a better place every day. So I can tell you that I've watched some of Debbie's videos on Facebook, and boy, is she a lot of fun. I met her at a Reiki retreat a few months ago, and I just thought, what a fun person to have on the podcast. So without any further conversation from me, Debbie, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. And as you know, we're looking for your spiritual journey from birth to present day. So take it away, Debbie.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you having me on. And I love the code word fun for wacky. I know when we met, I couldn't stop talking to you because I get nervous and sometimes I just overshare. So warning ahead of time, I don't know what's going to come out of my face today, but I will start with my journey. My parents are still Catholic, and we went to church every Sunday and, did the thing. 8 years old, I have to go to confession. I'm like, what do I have to confess? I borrowed somebody's pencil and didn't give it back. As I grew older, there was a snowstorm and we missed church. We had to go to confession. And my mom came out and she was really mad. She said, these priests, they should have children. Because you know what he told me? He said we should have tried to come to church that day. And he would have never gone out traveling with kids like that. And then, people receive the holy, communion, and walk out the door, and you're trying to leave church and people are giving each other the finger and not letting people out. And I started to question, is anybody actually believing this stuff that they're doing here? And then when I received confirmation, it was the first year that the bishop didn't smack you. Now, to be honest with you, I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to hit me. And he told this story, how he loved to see the little girls so scared, and he taps them. And then the brave boys come up and he smacks them so hard that Faith had a handprint at the party afterwards. And I thought, oh, this is a nice guy. As I received the little handshake.
Could I stop you just a second here? Because yes, this is the first time I've interviewed a lot of Catholics or ex-Catholics. And I've never heard of this ritual of smacking the person on the face.
Yes. Yeah, well, I was in 8th grade, so what's that, about 14, 15? So it's probably about 45 years ago that they stopped doing the slapping. But that was to get the spirit in you. It worked just fine for me. I mean, when they shook my hand, and like I said, my sponsors, my godfather and uncle had his hand on my shoulder, the Holy Spirit descended on me. And nobody talked about that. And I'm like, do they not think this actually works or something? So I really started to question what was going on. And from that point forward, I had a connection with the Holy Spirit. For me, it represents itself as the wind. So if something's going on and the wind is blowing, I know, even at the gentlest little touch, that he's with me. And so I stepped away from the church when I went through college, and then getting my master's at NYU. I was struggling a bit, and it was nice that there was a church on campus. So I went in just to kind of reconnect, but I kind of felt like something wasn't right. And then I don't believe in love at first sight. However, my idea was like, I didn't think a guy was going to support me forever and I should take care of myself. So I was training to have a career because I didn't think like being a wife and mother was a real thing for me. And I was like, what is it going to be like? And, I had like 2 boyfriends. One was like, what are you dressed like that for? You should dress up for me. I dressed up. And then he's like, what are you dressed up like that for? You're only going to college. I'm like, I don't need this. And then when I was getting my master's, the guy would drive out to Manhattan and he's like, what are you making for dinner? I'm like, I don't cook for myself. I'm not cooking for you. Like, if you're not taking me out so I can get away from this intensive master's program, like, don't bother. So I started a PhD program, and my thought was, you know what? I'm enough. I don't need anybody else. And as I was traveling after that program, I was staying at a youth hostel in Greece. I'm like flipping my feet on the bed, talking to some guy. I'm like, who is this guy? Oh, he's sleeping under my girlfriend. Because everybody just like puts your stuff on a bunk bed. Anyway, some random stranger hands him a drink and he sips it. And my soul says, if I could marry that, I'll be happy the rest of my life. And my body said, what are you talking about? I don't even know this man. And my soul said, shut up, I know what I'm talking about. Now, it was funny because it was a holiday and I shouldn't have been there. We were trying to change money to go somewhere else. It didn't happen. They were supposed to leave, but the guy who was drinking, it was his car, and the guy that handed him the drink had to stay there. So long story short, this is the man I met 35 years ago next month, and we were married a few days ago for 31 years. I didn't trust that. I waited for 4 years before I married him to know what my soul knew instantly. So I knew on a level that I had this connection to a part of me that wasn't me. And, I kind of make things happen in my life. Again, not knowing how, but trusting that this is the next step. I know people say that, man makes, plans and God laughs. God never laughed at my plans. He knew what I wanted. When I was teaching in England, after I taught in America for a few years, I wanted to go back home. And in that time, needed to have fingerprints. And the bosses said, oh my gosh, you'll be lucky if you get in by Christmas. It's nuts. But I knew I wanted to work on the first day. So I did my fingerprints. I called up and said, my principal needs me on the first day. And they said, well, he's supposed to call. I said, I don't know, I'm calling. Anyway, I was there on the first day. My principal's like, how'd you do that? I'm like, you told me you wanted me here. On the first day, I made it happen. Obviously, so I got support from the universe. Somebody was able to get me through in DC to some random person who knew how to do prints and pulled me and got me out of the list, right? So all of my life, things have been going to the way I planned them to be, because it's for my highest good and for what I'm meant to do in this world. So, of course, my husband being Church of England, which is like Anglican or Episcopalian, was not getting married in the Catholic Church. So seemed the same to me, a little bit different. And so I became Episcopalian. After probably 5 or 10 years, we moved to the country and we have our children, and I wanted them to have that fallback on some kind of a spiritual thing.
Let me stop you just a second, Deb.
Go for it.
All right. I want to know what country we're in. When you said you moved to the country.
Back to New York.
You're back in New York. Okay.
I was back in New York. Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep track of what country you're in.
That's right. Yeah. So I moved to England for a couple of years because I knew in that study abroad program, they needed teachers of the deaf. And I wanted to see what it was like to teach here. But I also wanted to go back to America because their vacations aren't as long. And I just thought it would be nice to kind of get a chance to see both countries and where we could live the best. You know what I mean? So we went back to New York and kind of never left because the vacations are bigger and we get to come to England and visit for the summer, so it was fine. But so there was no Episcopalian church in our neighborhood. And when we went to this church, it didn't seem so welcoming. And there was a Methodist church in town. So we started going to the Methodist church. And again, it's along the same lines, but different, way different. And it was nice for the children to have a community of people who love them, who watch them grow up. And like me, I'm sure my children are feeling their oats about where they need to be spiritually, and that's fine. Kind of in my 30s, I started studying the Bhagavad Gita because I was curious about that. Then it was A Course in Miracles, which I'm still kind of getting through the lessons. I have a great group that meets on Monday nights. And then I kind of felt like, all these things kind of tie together. And it seems to me like there is a focus. So I thought my next step was to delve in more deeply in my spirituality. And I found that Alliance of Divine Love is a church that looks at all the different major religions and things that people believe in. And the common thread is love. And like, I'm all about love. So I became ordained in December. So kind of about 6-7 months ago.
All right. I'm going to stop you again.
Okay.
How did you stumble upon the Alliance of Divine Love?
So I found the Alliance of Divine Love through Heidi and John Kowalczyk, who also run the Northeast Reiki Retreat, because one Sunday they had come to the American Meditation Institute, which is run by Leonard Perlmutter. And it turns out they were very close to where I lived. We became friends. They do some healing meditations in Reiki circles and Alliance of the Course in Miracles. And I found out that they were ministers with Alliance of Divine Love. And I thought I would love for them to be my mentors. And so, I wasn't doing it to be a reverend per se. I really just wanted it for my own spiritual growth. And of course, you have to do an internship. So they decided, since I do these crazy videos that you've seen on my social media, that it would be great if I did a vlog talking about the course that we took and what I got from it. It was about 35 weeks. So I said, well, in between the 3 different books, I'll just yak about things that come to me. And so that's what I've been doing on Wednesdays. I call it Wise Words Wednesdays, as if I have something wise to say.
So those were the videos I was watching on Facebook.
Was I wearing my stole?
Yeah, they're so much fun.
Well, I'm glad you think so. I really I discovered that, every single person is different. And I like to say, don't believe what I'm saying. Go do the experiment. Like Leonard, I'm sure, the Dalai Lama, everybody says, you are unique and different. And you need to know what's right for you. And my body is different than everybody else's. I've discovered that I have some neurospiciness and issues with sensory things. And it means that I'm not like everybody else. And growing up, I just thought I was weird, And then I realized that my mom and dad had a daughter and they were happy. They got a baby. And then 14 months later, they had me. And they were like, okay, another daughter. 17 months later, another daughter. And they were like, okay, where's the birth control? Being Catholic, you can just have kids forever. And then, of course, they eventually tried again and had the boy. But we're all different. My sister was the first girl born to this family. My mom was like, yay, another one. By the third one, they're like, we're all different. We're born to a different circumstance. And, I learn different from other people. I can't learn by watching the teacher and taking notes. I can't write notes and listen. Either the notes don't make any sense and I hear what she's saying, or I miss what she's saying while I write. I learn best by staring out the window. So my mind is focused, but my eyes are doing something else. So it was kind of interesting learning and growing up that way. But even food, people say you should eat rice and, brown rice. I look 9 months pregnant if I eat rice. So I feel like people, and it takes a lot of time, like, you have to be committed to yourself to figure out what's going on. I mean, I turned out, and when I was 27, I had meningitis twice. Now, people don't get meningitis once, but it turns out that there's something broken in my body. You don't have to go into the details, but if they pulled it from people's blood, I would have to inject myself daily. I'm not doing needles. So I said, no, thank you. They said, well, carry this note, eat right, exercise, get enough sleep, and, give them the note if you get sick. So it means that I am unique, and I'm not unique in the fact that we're all unique, but nobody really takes the time to figure out how they're different and why. Everybody's trying to shoehorn themselves into that little package of medium, right? Just right. I'm not too much, not too little. I don't want anybody to notice me because I'm a weirdo. And, it's exhausting. So for me, I just decided, this is me. Love me or hate me. Like, I have lovers and hate.
This is a good time to make that statement, because the Barbie movie just came out, and it's all about, trying to fit into one particular idealistic picture of what we should be, and how wrong that is.
I know. And, as a teacher, I kind of get both ends, right? It's important for all the kids to kind of be together because it's easier. But realistically, even in a regular classroom with no kids with disabilities, there are kids who are strong readers and weak readers and in-between readers. And there's so much disparity to expect that you can just say something and everybody's going to get the same thing. It's not happening. And so it is difficult, and it makes people who are not in that box, which is most of us in some way are different from that box. It's not a happy place for us. And definitely it's harder if you have everybody doing their own thing, but it's really what needs to happen. I mean, people need to know who they are. I mean, right now, I think I just started a 7-week series on learning different parts of your health, like spiritual health. Like, if you grew up in a family that had a certain religious thing and it didn't work for you, like, it's kind of your responsibility to pony up and actually figure out what is you and what resonates, because you're here for a purpose, and nobody has that purpose but you. Nobody has your molecular structure, even if you're twins. Nobody was born exactly the same time, because obviously twins were born a few minutes apart, and that's a whole different world. And we have a purpose. Now, the best part about what I love about my spirituality is I don't believe in sin. I don't believe anybody has ever done anything wrong on purpose. Now, call me Pollyanna, but I know that in every single moment, people are trying to do their best with what they have and the decisions and choices they have to make. I don't think any parent wakes up and goes, how can we mess up the kids today? No, they're trying their best, right? And likewise, teachers do their best, and every single person. And I also know that salvation is complete, right? It's already happened. I do what I need to do, and I move on to my next thing. And you do as well. And so it kind of makes you like say, I get there in the end. Oh, gosh, I made a mistake there. Now I see that. But I realized at the time I didn't know that. So I can forgive my former self. And, people think I'm this. I'm not this. I mean, I think of my little 4-year-old self, wherever that is. Like, I'm not that person. Yes, I am, but no, I'm not. I mean, I'm not going to be this person when I'm 60 in a few months, because I'm going to learn and change. I mean, this interview is helping me grow. I mean, one of the things, I like to commune with nature. I like to go on a meditative walk in the morning before I eat my breakfast. And when I'm in New York, there's nothing there. There's woods, there's some deer, some squirrels. Here in England, I'm across from a school, there's people everywhere, lots of roses. So I sniff them every day. And I'm constantly meeting people. And I wave because, it's a human. We're all getting along in life. Do you know people don't wave to people here? I'm like, they wave to me. And, I saw a little woman yesterday, and I didn't want to scare her, so I stepped off the curb because I was walking faster, and I said, good morning. And when I passed her, I said, how you doing? And she said, oh, not good. So I stopped. And I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then, that was it. The emotional toll of her life took over. And I was able to be there for her, for somebody who didn't have somebody else to talk to. And I said, can I help? And she says, well, what can you do? I said, what can I not do? And I listed all the things you listed this morning. And I said, how can I help? And so I, rubbed her back, sent in Reiki energy to her. I was thinking of her when I say my prayers. I was, sending love and just being there with someone else, hopefully made her day. And I thanked her. I said, you blessed me today to allow me to meet a really wonderful human being. And I feel like we're so busy doing the things that nobody really has the time to realize that every single person on that street is really just trying to be happy, just trying to make the best of their life, doing their best in the moment to be the best they can be, even when they make mistakes and do things that you would think, oh, that's a stupid thing to do. It might not have been for them. I mean, my kids, sometimes they have to do things themselves because they don't believe that it would happen to them. Like, this is when they're baby. One of our friends was like running on the arm of the chair and he slipped and fell. And I said, that's why I tell you, don't go on the arm of the chair, you're going to fall. But some people want to try it for themselves to see if they're really going to fall. So I'm like, okay, it's going to take you a long time to get through things in life if you're going to have to reproduce everybody's mistake. But it's just kind of funny because as you learn and grow, you see things from a different perspective. And I look at myself today and, I don't give myself credit for all of the things I've achieved because I think, well, everybody knows that and everybody's heard this one. And then it comes to my attention that lots of people in my life have never heard the things that I say. Most of them don't watch what I do, thank goodness, because I'd be like, if anybody saw what I do, I might not be like this because I just think nobody sees it anyway. It's fine. But the reality is that I am in the moment doing the best I can. And you're going to see me at my best or worst moment. And you're going to make a judgment about me, even though you know nothing about my background. And I do the same thing. I have a book. I'm going to do it when I get to Florida in a few months. It's The Judgment Detox and the Workbook from Gabrielle Bernstein. Because, one of the biggest things the Catholics taught us is, you got to judge people. Are they the right people? Are they doing the wrong thing? And I'm sorry.
I'm going to back you up a minute again, Deb.
Go ahead.
Okay, because on my website, I have a section called Resources. And whatever you mentioned during this podcast, I'm going to have links to that. So give me the name of that book on judgment again.
It's Gabrielle Bernstein.
Gabrielle Bernstein.
Mm-hmm. And it's The Judgment Detox. She has loads of great books. I love The Universe Has Your Back and Make Wars Miracles. I mean, The Spiritual Junkie. I mean, just so many good things. You can probably hear her talk or get an audiobook from Libby on your library or whatever. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
My pleasure. So yeah, I mean, the thing that really got me about, the Catholic people and my father, well, I'm sorry, Dad, but he says, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that kind of thing. I'm like, that's the Old Testament? If you're a Catholic, you're a New Testament. And the New Testament is love thy neighbor as yourself. And if you're loving your neighbor, who is everybody on the planet, then, whatever happened over there, that's not up to you. Like, you just have to be the best you can be. And, forgiveness is a hard thing. Like, I have a hard time forgiving myself for mistakes, although I'm getting better at that. But I have to forgive myself when I judge people because, okay, we're watching Women's World Cup and, ball goes out, they both say, it's mine. And I say, how could that Denmark girl say the ball went out on her? She saw it go off on her foot. And then they showed it from a different angle. And you know what? It went off on the Chinese girl's foot. And the Chinese girl's still saying it's hers because she probably thought it bounced off the other one. So it's amazing how everything from a different perspective. When I was teaching the deaf kids, they sometimes couldn't understand perspective. And I was like, well, you play softball, right? She said, yes. I said, when you're at bat, the ball is coming to you like this. But when you're playing first base, you're watching the pitcher throw the ball like that. So your perspective is different where you stand. So I feel our perspective almost every day changes based on what we've learned, what we've acquired, what we take in. Sometimes you're in a place where you just can't even take stuff in. Like it's too much and you're just like, okay. But if you try, like I do, to be the best human you can be every day, you realize when I was 27 and in the hospital in England, and I might die, they didn't even call my folks. They're like, let's make sure she's going to live first. I realized it didn't matter how much money I had in the bank. It didn't matter, how much health I had. If I didn't have health, right? That is the most important thing. I could be rich. I can be smart. You need your body. And it kind of makes me a little upset when people say, oh, well, you know what? I just like to have meatballs and, burgers or whatever. And if I can't eat what I want, then why should I be here? I'm like, because your family is going to miss you when you're gone because you couldn't put down the things that were damaging your body after you knew. And you had the triple bypass and all that. I feel it's a bit selfish, but it's their life and it's their experience and they have to do it. And I totally believe that every time we make a decision, we go one way or the other. Like I have no idea where I just got onto that thought now, but somewhere I made a different choice and I said something else. And so whatever I need to say, I feel like it's coming out for a reason. And I meant to set an intention when we started this, when I thanked you, to say that I'm hoping that I just help one person, whether they drink more water because they know that water is important, whether they take a deep breath and realize that they can breathe and some people can't. If they decide that this Debbie Holden chick is full of hogwash and I'm going to do things my way and prove that she's wrong. I love for people to just think about their life because although I am going to break the record and be 125, it kind of goes fast. I really didn't believe them. When the kids were little, it took forever. I'm like, they're only 10 and I still can't go to the bathroom and pee. But now they're in their 20s and I'm like, oh my gosh, that blipped by. So it's so funny. Like sometimes things seem to take forever. Other times they take no time at all. This is just like the most wild ride. I have a funny story about getting connected to source. Some people say when you're on the right path, you'll get these signs from the universe. And I'm like, okay, let's see. They said, well, pick something that you love. And I had lilies in my bouquet when I got married. I love lilies. So I said, okay, every time I see a lily, I'm going to know I'm doing the right thing. I was at lunch one day and I went into Panera and I'm waiting online. A little person in front of me is ordering and they say, what's your name, honey? And she said, Lily. I'm like, what? And so I knew the universe was playing with me, right? And so passed over loved ones, they bring me signs. Like I first thought of this when my cousin shared that when our grandmother passed away, every time she sees a heart, she thinks of her. And so I started seeing hearts in the weirdest places, like literally on a post, there was a knot in the wood that was cut on a weird angle. And then it was like a drop of water on my counter. So I was like, hi, Nana, how you doing? And so as people passed away, I sort of said, what are you going to show me yourself as? And when you need somebody, when you're just something, then a butterfly passes, you're like, hi, Rose, So you could think I'm nuts, but try it. What's the worst that can happen? You prove I'm nuts and you say, good for you. But it might just be some sort of support for you when you need something one day. And then all of a sudden, there's a sign that says, you're all right. You're doing the right thing,
Another question, Deb.
Go for it.
Just, I thought of this as soon as you said, people think I'm nuts. So your parents are still Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken a different path.
Mm-hmm.
How has that affected your interactions with your parents?
Well, I tell you what, to my parents' credit, they are wonderful human beings. And it really meant a lot to me for them to come to the ordination. And they're 85 now. I mean, at the time they were moments before 85. And they were on Long Island. And I thought, are you crazy? Why in the world would you want these people to drive up on a December day that's full of snow and whatnot just to be there? And they totally support me. I'm sure they have thoughts on their own about whether or whatnot, but I don't think they have any question about me going to heaven or not. Like, they're not mad at me about it. They know that I was a little different than everybody else in the family, and they love me. They think that I'm doing the right thing. They love my kids. It's funny because my mom actually watches my Wise Words Wednesdays, and this week I said something. I think I told the story about the family and the kids, right? And she's like, oh, you wrote about the family. How nice, you know? Or she'll say, because one time I was talking about how I don't cook. And she's like, why didn't I teach you to cook? Oh, yeah, you were never home. You're always doing that stuff, you know? And so I really feel they're supportive. And, you know, my mom has connection to source. She doesn't think of it the way I do, but like she gets these ideas in her head, right? She's going out the door and God says, put a hat on. She's like, okay. She hears, put a hat on. Puts the hat on, doesn't know why, just follows directions. And then later that day, she bangs her head. And she's like, thank goodness I had my hat on. I didn't get hurt. So they definitely are connected. But again, different generation. I don't think they feel the flexibility of being able to think a different way, like, because that's the way they were brought up. But the fact that my mom said all those years ago, probably 40 years ago, maybe 50, that they should be able to get married, priests. And, you know, I looked back in the history, priests used to be able to get married, but the church was losing their land when they had male heirs and when the father passed away. So they were like, oh, that's not a good thing. Let's say they can't get married. And we know where that led because, you know, it's a gift from God, right? We have companionship, food, sleep, you know, you got needs, you got to deal with that. So my parents are very supportive, and they've gotten better over the years, you know, as far as their thinking about how to bring people up and how to be in the world. I mean, I can't believe it. At 85, they use the internet better than I should. They're helping me where to do stuff. So, yeah, I don't think they have a problem with that. I'm not sure what the rest of my family think. Probably think I'm a weirdo, but that's all right. Hi, guys. They're never going to see this. Don't worry. I don't know if I'll probably tell them, but yeah. Oh dear. So anyway, let me think. So that was basically from my initial contact with religion to my spiritual self as I am now, and all of the little things in between. I am now like studying the Tao Te Ching because it's one that I haven't studied before, and I love the paradox of it. You know, like if you can learn about, like the first line is something like, if you can, maybe it's A Course in Miracles, right? I can't remember the actual words. I think it's like the Tao that you can know is not the real Tao, right? Do you know that first line in A Course in Miracles? Because you teach it.
Yeah, I've got it on the shelf behind me.
Yeah, it's something like, I don't have it. Go on, pull it out. I know that line, though.
Okay. I know that the people I study the course with would have my head for not remembering that line.
I know. Well, that's what happens when you're in a situation like this. Go on. I'm trying to remember it.
Did I ever tell you how I ended up with the Course in Miracles? It sat on my shelf for 2 years before I opened it. And
really?
It was because my wife and I went to Rwanda and there was nothing to do. We had no television, no radio, so we read the Course in Miracles to each other.
How did you even know it existed?
Well, you know how those things show up in your life. Okay, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists.
Exactly. That's the one. And it's very confusing to people because, you know, they think this computer is real, but it can be destroyed. Therefore, it is not real. And it's kind of like people say every day, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. No, it doesn't. The earth is revolving around the sun. It just looks that way. So we have all these things in our life that we believe is true, which isn't strictly the truth. And I feel like that is along the same lines, because we all know that there's something in us, with us, that's not us. I mean, our brain is not our mind. Our brain is the piece of equipment that takes what our mind thinks and makes it happen in our body. But nobody has found where the mind actually is. That is the part of us that lives on forever, isn't it? Seeing as energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed.
Right.
We also are transformed. And I love the lesson where it said, you know, everything you see in the day, say, I don't know what this is for. And, you know, it was like the example was a table. And I'm like, well, a table's for a table. But no, it's not. If it's my husband, it's for an ironing board. But, you know, I just think a table is a table because I've been taught that a table is a table. But really, it isn't. It's so many things. And if you look at people and things like that, that you really don't know what it's for.
Yeah, my cat thinks the table is a place to take a nap.
And it's a very good place for that. They like to be high up, don't they?
Yeah.
And you know, there's so many stories of people that have like blessed me. Like I met some guy the other day and I was like, oh, you know, what do you do? And he has the best job ever. He jumps up and down on play equipment to make sure it's not going to break for kids.
And he gets paid to do that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he gets, you know, somebody to fix it if it's going to break. And he was one of those people who I'm not sure how like they exist in the world, because he did not want, like I said to him, because I told him like a little trick of something to do and I wanted to like give him my number if he wanted to let me know how it worked out. But he didn't like want to give me his number or share his number. I said, oh, so you're just one of those angels, Kevin, that like were here to teach me a lesson and then you just evaporate. And so, you know, I love the world. And, you know, people say they don't believe in God. And then other people say, well, what if God's real and you didn't believe in him? And vice versa, right? If you do believe in him and he doesn't exist, what does it matter? I just feel like every minute of every day, I want to have the most fun. And stress is not fun for me. Like the second something bad happens, I can't do that. I'm like, not thinking about that. I'm going to think about this fun thing. I'm going to smell that lovely plant. I'm going to do something fun, because if I spend 1 minute being sad, I just wasted 1 minute of my precious life from being happy. And so like people say, oh, you're a Pollyanna and, you know, life. Well, you know what? My life has always been awesome. It's always been blessed. I have 2 amazing children. I have a man who loves me. When I decided to grow my underarm hair just to see what it was like, because I didn't know it was like 12. When my mother did one side, I said, okay, go, I'll do the rest. Like, why? Turns out I don't like it. It gets stuck under my arm. So, you know, I don't know how you guys deal with that. But like, I have that opportunity to just be in the moment. And I don't know why people don't want to have fun. Like, try the experiment. You don't think the universe says something nice? Well, then don't do it anymore. Do something fun. But like, why not try it? Like, why are we stuck in like, I have to do this, otherwise, you know? Yeah. I mean, I just don't follow the rules very well.
Well, it is funny how people spend time looking for happiness when all it is a choice. You can just decide, I'm going to be happy, and then you're happy.
Exactly. I mean, I think it was Lincoln who was attributed to saying people are just about as happy as they make up their mind to be. Right. And also Jim Rohn. I was driving to work one day and listening to him talk about something, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, this is your life. This moment right now is your life. What I did before this podcast, what I do after this podcast, it's not real. It's not happening. It's like, if I'm not happy this second, I'm going to be happy when I retire. Well, that's 6 years away. I'm going to be happy when the kids are grown. That might be 20 years away if you've just given birth, right? I'm going to be happy when I have $1 million in the bank. That may never happen. Like I could walk out, slide down because the stairs are wet, break my neck, and I'm done. And I just spent some time worrying about what's going to happen when I'm 60. Why? Like, sometimes I think people not understand, like, are they too focused in, going to work and what? I don't know. Am I different than everybody else?
No, you're happy, and we're meant to be happy. That's why we're here, you know?
And help other people be happy. Maybe there's something I did that made somebody laugh, then yay, you know? And like I said, I just so appreciate you allowing me to share my journey through the world and my take on things. And I really love what you do, and I appreciate that you help people see people from different points of view. And it's great that you have people from all different cultures and all different religious beliefs, because something will hit somebody and they'll resonate with that, and they'll be like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who thinks this way. And I really appreciate you so much.
Well, I've got to tell you, you've added to my happiness for today. That's for sure. You're just so much fun. So as you know, and as I warned you, we're coming to the end of this podcast, and this is the moment when you get to leave our audience with some words of wisdom. So let's hear those Debbie words of wisdom.
Well, my church is called Faith in Truth, fit, because I like to be fit, and because I really believe that you need to have faith in your truth. Because as I said, nobody has gone through the exact same steps that you have. Nobody has had your experiences. And if you don't have faith in yourself and in your truth, and I'm not talking about what your mama taught you, what's on TV, what books you read, I'm talking about actual experience in your body, then who is going to, right? And so if you can trust yourself, if you know what's right for you, even if you seem like to be a salmon going the opposite way of everybody else in the world, nobody can dispute your truth because you lived it, you experienced it. They don't have to believe you, but you need to trust you. You need to know what's good for you. And I'll ask you, if you could kind of honor that. If somebody tries to put food in front of you and you know it's going to make you sick, just say, I'm sorry, I can't eat that, and bring your own food, you know? And so I just want you to love yourself, love everyone, trust yourself, and be you, because nobody can be you. And it's so fun when you get to know who you are and people like connect with you and say, hey, I'm just like that person, or I'm different. Like, I love the diversity in the world, and I just want everyone to embrace their own uniqueness. Thank you so much.
What great words to leave our audience with. Well, audience, you know what happens now. You get to take with you what resonates with you and just put the rest on a shelf for later reference.
Or rip it out of the book and throw it away like A Course in Miracles, right?
Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.